The story everyone is talking about in the US today, and we have the latest updates right here. Welcome to USA News. If you don't want to miss what happens next, subscribe now. Here is what we know so far. DEA under fire after fentanyl shipments reached New Mexico streets during deadly drug crisis. Imagine learning that during the worst drug epidemic in American history, authorities knowingly allowed large quantities of one of the deadliest drugs ever created to continue flowing into local communities. That is the explosive allegation at the center of a new report raising serious questions about law enforcement tactics, public safety, and accountability. According to current and former Drug Enforcement Administration agents, along with government records reviewed by reporters, hundreds of thousands of fentanyl pills were permitted to reach the streets of New Mexico between 2023 and 2025, even as the nation struggled to combat a devastating overdose crisis. The revelations have sparked outrage and renewed debate over how far federal agencies should go in pursuing major criminal organizations. At the center of the controversy is a strategy long used in narcotics investigations. Rather than immediately seizing drugs, investigators sometimes monitor shipments and allow transactions to proceed in hopes of identifying higher-level traffickers, dismantling larger networks, and building stronger criminal cases. Supporters of the tactic argue that targeting only low-level dealers often fails to disrupt the criminal organizations responsible for distributing drugs across the country. But fentanyl is not just another narcotic. Experts warn that even tiny amounts can be deadly. Just a few milligrams can cause a fatal overdose in an average adult. That reality has changed the stakes dramatically. According to reports, DEA agents tracked multiple shipments of counterfeit fentanyl pills but did not always intervene immediately, as prosecutors pursued broader investigations into trafficking organizations. One current DEA agent, David Howell, offered a deeply critical assessment of the strategy. In interviews, he argued that allowing the drugs to remain on the streets came at a terrible cost. His comments have become one of the most emotional and controversial parts of the story, fueling concerns among families already affected by addiction and overdose deaths. The issue is particularly sensitive because fentanyl has become one of the most dangerous drugs in America. Much of the illicit fentanyl sold in the United States is manufactured in clandestine laboratories and distributed through complex criminal networks. Over the past decade, law enforcement agencies have made combating fentanyl one of their highest priorities as overdose deaths surged nationwide. Recognizing the unique dangers posed by the drug, the U.S. Department of Justice developed guidance encouraging agents to seize fentanyl whenever practical in order to reduce risks to the public. That guidance is now being closely examined in light of these new allegations. Public reaction has been intense. Many Americans have expressed shock at reports that shipments were monitored rather than immediately confiscated. Critics argue that communities battling addiction should never be exposed to additional risk, regardless of investigative objectives. Others point out that dismantling major trafficking organizations often requires difficult decisions and long-term investigations that can prevent even larger quantities of drugs from reaching the streets in the future. For families who have lost loved ones to fentanyl overdoses, however, the debate is deeply personal. Behind every statistic is a life, a family, and a community forever changed. As questions continue to mount, many are demanding greater transparency about how these operations were conducted and whether existing policies adequately protect the public. The controversy has once again placed America's fentanyl crisis at the center of the national conversation. And now, one critical question remains. Did the strategy help stop larger criminal networks, or did it come at too high a cost for the communities it was meant to protect? The answer could have major implications for future drug enforcement efforts across the United States.